Hey guys, it is Tim here with Tabletop Terrors, and this is Daily Damage, a live stream that we try to do as many weekdays as we can. Here at Tabletop Terrors, we believe that everyone can be more creative, and we prove that using tabletop RPGs. Now, today we're going to talk about world building Dragonborns. Dragonborns is in your campaign world, making them cool, making them make sense. And at the end of the video, we're going to do something interesting. It's going to be another world building challenge, or perhaps something different. But first, before we do absolutely anything else, raise your drinks for a Tabtarian toast. Who's drinking with me? May you mend the first break. May you kill the first snake. And may you conquer everything you undertake. Sláinte. All right, so let's talk about our campaign world of Dragongrin. James and I write for a company called Absolute Tabletop. You can check out absolutetabletop.com. The word dragon is in our campaign world's name, so we have to be bringing it as far as draconic lore, and to me, directly tying that into Dragonborn lore. So let's talk about the region that is, I think, most important when you're talking about why the world is called Dragongrin. There's a region called Uldain. Now, basically, this place is marred with the magical energy of ancient decomposing dragons. In our world, the word grin has two common meanings. One means to rise honoring the dead, the other means a grave. So Dragongrin, our world, literally means dragon grave. And Uldain, this region that is furthest north, is where most of these dragon corpses are. Now, Uldain it's very large, and to me, you cannot have a region so large, full of so many dragon corpses, without it being heavily affected. And so, let's talk about what that means. But first, this is a live stream, and I want to take it to the chat and see who is with us today. Oh man, we got Timothy Waters. We got Sean DeGizo? Did I say it right that time? Nathan Thurston says, even me? I can be more creative? Yay. Everyone can be more creative. Timothy Waters says, been a long time since I caught a video. It's great. It's great to be back. Brad Proctor is here, and Joey Byer says, hello, Tim. What's going on, everybody? So, we're talking about Uldain. We're talking about this place. Now, here's the quick thing that I'm going to throw into your brain to help you get where we need to be to world build Uldain is, let's talk about Conan the Barbarian. Let's talk about lost temples and dragon cults and serpent temples of Unath Rock. Now, to me, this is where all your sword and sorcery is going to take place, for the most part, in Dragongrin. Think Robert E. Howard's Conan, Edgar Rice Burroughs, so all of that stuff. We'll, perhaps even two. Let's make a human city in Uldain, and we're going to call this the Maw of Sima. Now, here's the interesting thing about Uldain. Uldain is plagued by these terrible, terrible arcane storms known as bleak storms. The bleak is this maelstrom of arcane energy that exists in the world. And northern is what I should have said, is the most, I would say, the land that's plagued most with these bleak storms. In fact, there's so much bleak, there's so much arcane energy, and so many of these maelstroms, that people don't say north, they actually say bleakward. So that's giving you a little bit of background, a little bit of interesting kind of layout of where did the Dragonborn come from. Now, here's the thing. Dragonborn are largely, I think, ripped on. I think a lot of people from 4th edition on don't really care for Dragonborn. The other thing to note is that Dragonborn, technically, they haven't been called this, have been around since 2nd edition as half-dragons. Very, very different, so don't get me wrong, but I think the Dragonborn is just the 4th edition version of a half-dragon that a player can use. But I think the reason why a lot of dungeon masters don't like them is because they're big, extra unique characters that don't fit very clearly in most worlds. So I think that the disdain for Dragonborn comes from a difficult time weaseling them into the world somewhere where it makes sense. Fitting them in a way that isn't just like, yeah, and then there's a bunch of dragon men running around, so deal with that. It can be very difficult, especially if you're running a low fantasy campaign. I've talked to some dungeon masters that don't even allow Dragonborn, which is fine. But I want to create a world where the Dragonborn are terrifying, they make sense, and there's a reason why they're so scarce. So that if a player does actually play one, it's interesting, they've got this built-in background they can play off of, and the dungeon master has an easy time with allowing it or disallowing it based on these certain things that you're going to agree on together. So, let's talk about some things in the chat, and then we're going to really dig in deep here to some Dragonborn world building. Let's see here. Oh, that's what it is. Harry Pollard is here. What's up, man? James Lang says, hey, Tim. Sean, I'm going to get your name right one of these days. DeJazo. Sean DeJazo. Howdy from Rebecca as well. What's going on, Rebecca? Tyler Hurst is here. Josh Glisson says, howdy ho, Ranger Joe. Well, hi, I'm Ranger Joe, and I'm here to drink this here Monster Energy drink. I found this in the woods. I think it's cursed by a Necronomicon. Josh Glisson. Let's see. You know what's weird? It gave me your message, and then it gave me that you joined, which is weird. Rory McDonough says, that's awesome. Are there any magic users in that north that try to harvest the energies of the bleak? Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that, Rory. That's a really good question. Ooh, yeah. We're going to talk about that and what it does to them. Kristen is here. Kristen Logie. Corey Hollenbach says, caught you for once. Jeff Doty says hello. All right. If you know anything about Tabletop Terrors world building, you know that we like to do a Tabtarian triangle where we have different things that people believe in the world about one topic. So let's do that. The most popular belief regarding the origin of the Dragonborn in Dragongrin is this. You got these dead dragons. They're in this gravesite. And I'm talking, this thing has to be wicked awesome. It has to look like Mad Max Thunderdome meets Fallout, like meets just Tomb of Horrors, like this. It's a dragon graveyard, so it's got to be crazy. And so what I think is, these dragons, even their corpses, have these powerful essences that are constantly being put out. A decomposing dragon corpse is not going to be just like a normal corpse, which is already going to release your gases and as things break down. I'm talking breakdown for eternity. Right there, that's the name of my breakdance squad, so represent. What's up, y'all? This is Breakdance for Eternity. We're going to begin now. But these things are, breakdown for eternity. The point is, I think that is what creates this craziness. And add the bleak on top of that, and you've got this cocktail of crazy arcane energies going on. So, the most common belief is that a piece of a dragon's soul, a shard or a piece of the essence, is actually placed inside of a mortal body. Now, why? How? Well, the way I like to look at it is this. In Dragongrin, maybe it's impossible to kill a dragon entirely. Perhaps they slowly regenerate, even if they don't come back to life, even if their essence isn't strong enough to animate their bodies. What if their bodies constantly slowly regenerate? Something like that. The idea is, I think that the most popular belief in Dragongrin is that their bodies are creating these eggs that are defense mechanisms that are essentially an extension of the dragon. It's attempting to seek a way to bring themselves back to life. So their body as this defense mechanism is essentially laying these Dragonborn eggs with a piece of their own soul in there. So what they're doing is birthing these servants into existence to bring themselves back to life and health, sending out these Dragonborn to go, hey, go and find a way to raise me. Go and find a way to bring me back to life. Bring us back to life. So that is sort of a legendary mythical way. Now, this can also mean that the Dragonborn function autonomously, but have the same internal wiring from which they were born. So they're going to have some of the same predispositions as their dragon masters. So that's one way to do it. Now, that's the most popular belief. Some say that in doing this, the Dragonborn have developed a strong will of their own to strike out, and that they no longer serve their dragon masters. Now, this was eons ago. This was centuries ago. Others posit that as the dragons age, as their bodies decompose in the Grin, some of them not alive, some of them their essence is barely living, that their souls have become weak, and the Dragonborn that have come out of this same method aren't as tied to them. It's almost just like they're just birthing these Dragonborns. And so these Dragonborn are much more independent, having their own will. But many believe that the Dragonborn are so far removed from their draconic masters, or maybe aren't directly related to them as others think, that they form their own ecology. Now, in my world, I think Dragonborn are from eggs. I think that that's cooler. I think it's it fits the race to me, and it makes it more alien. You know, kind of following the rule of, you know, if a mammal gives milk, it often doesn't lay eggs. You know, to me, these are not mammalian in any way. I don't think that they should have a mammalian birth. And I'm sure there are trillions of different things you could show me in nature. So, well, no, a lizard is born this way and that way. To me, eggs equals cool, equals layers, equals guarding layers, equals cool birthing cycle and all that stuff. So, those are some things. Now, we're going to talk more about this and how it plays into Dragongrim, but I want to go to the chat yet again. Ha! Josh Glisten says, not only does my reputation precede me, my thoughts do also. Nathaniel Tice says, bleak reapers. Ooh, that's cool. Corey Hollenbach, envisioning the elephant graveyard from Lion King. Yeah, dude, think arcane elephant graveyard from Lion King. That's a perfect just image of exactly what I'm thinking of. That with a little dash of Mad Max, just all that stuff. Dylan Allen is here. Josh Glisten says, imagine if farmers planted on an old dragon corpse. Everyone who ate that food had a chance of giving birth to a dragonborn. That's perfect. Those are the exact kind of things that need to be happening. And we're going to touch on some of that specifically. But I love the idea that the Dragon Grin in Uldane is not the only place that dragon corpses are. Very long story short, that's a lot undefined. There was a huge war. And which, come on, what fantasy world doesn't have a huge war, right? But there was this, huge war, and essentially the dragons were all slain, and they, their corpses are where they were slain. Now that place in Uldane is where the final battle, quote unquote, took place, which is why a lot of the dragons were there, etc. Oh, Rob Coletta's here. So, Kyle Swanson says, so given the belief that they're extensions of the dragons kind of trying to bring them back, how accepted are Dragonborn as a result? Not accepted. Dragonborn are terrifying, and you avoid them. They are not like you see a Dragonborn in society, and you kind of look at them funny because it's confusing, but the looks you get, it's like, no. The same thing you would think if you saw in our world, a 6 to 7 foot dragon humanoid walking around with flitting serpentine eyes. You wouldn't be like, wow, that is interesting. You'd be like, everyone would be running. I think, to me, Dragonborn in Dragongrin should represent ancient, death-bringing curses and evils. To me. Now, are they all like that? Probably not. Did some good dragons die and have this kind of process happen? Yeah. But I think, absolutely, I think that Dragonborn should be terrifying. Well, but if it's like that, how are my PCs going to play them? Well, that's the thing. You got to have a really good reason. And on a practical level, this is more game mastering advice. It can get very tough to bring a Dragonborn around with you everywhere. But that's kind of the thing. If you're going to bring a Dragonborn around with you everywhere, it's going to have repercussions because of what they're tied to. I think it's important. Ben Fisher says, I like that, Josh Glisten. Ben Fisher says, you could have this link to the dragon so long ago it's been forgotten, but a group of Dragonborn have found an old ruin that gives them information. Now you have an interesting villainous faction for an adventure campaign. Here's the way I like to think of it, and this is where I want to go back to that Robert E. Howard, Conan, Edgar Rice Burroughs, like Cimmeria kind of, in a time before the oceans drank Atlantis. To me, I think the Dragonborn are fully aware of what the lore says they are. I think it would be cool and interesting if most of their societies it is commonly believed, similar to, I'm not trying to push any buttons here, I'm not trying to talk about actual world beliefs, but I'm using this as an example. Similarly, as to how Christianity is accepted as not accepted, it is the most popular religion in the United States. As of, I think, 2012 or something. The point being is, when you're born as a Dragonborn, that's how you're indoctrinated. It's how you're raised. It's what you believe. So I think the Dragonborn think that. Now, whether it's true or not, that's another story entirely. Because again, remember when we're doing that world building, we make that triangle. Some say, others posit, many believe. Because world building truly is not about us conveying facts. It's about us conveying things for the players to believe in. So, to me, I think having a Dragonborn who strike out on their own as adventurers is super rare, because now you're talking a rarity amongst rarity. But that would give you a really cool character concept. The other thing is that the Dragonborn could very happily go along with an adventuring party who's, you know, if their goals align. Hey, I'm going out to such and such a place, and the Dragonborn's like, well, you know, I'll join you there because I need to go and retrieve this relic to raise my master. Like, it's just, that's the thing. Some people think they're crazy. Others believe that it's real and it's going to happen, and they're sitting in their huts or their, you know, their dirt floor, little, I want to say, I can't think of the word. It's not a bodega. Oh gosh. I can't think of the word. It's not a hut. It's the other one. Shack. I don't know. Point is that they are doomsday naysayers saying like, someday the dragons are coming. It's soon. The dragons are coming. While others are like, man, those people are crazy. And the Dragonborn, who knows what atrocity they were born from. But we all know the dragons, some people don't even believe the dragons were ever real in the first place. I think this is important for a sense of verisimilitude around the world. So yes, all that to say, Ben, is I think absolutely. And to kind of pin your point onto something, I think some of them have found proof that it's true. But I think it's more terrifying that they openly are constantly trying to raise the dragons. But I think it's a fool's errand. I think it's very difficult to do. I don't know exactly why, but I think just the regeneration of something so big and old and powerful is not easy. I also think that creates open war among the different dragon colors, which is something I love. You know, and that's, in my mind, that's a trope. I don't know that I've ever seen that anywhere, but I think I'm saying open war. Like Israel-Palestine. Like if you are a red dragon versus a blue dragon, if they run into each other, it is absolutely like, well, no. Because any resource that you could possibly have, I need it. And I'm going to kill you for it. And so, yeah, anyway, so this is interesting stuff. Joey Byers. He says, just missed the past few minutes. Internet picked a great time to fizz out. Oh, that's a bummer. Don't worry, it'll be on YouTube later. Harry says, I just thought of something cool. Have Dragonborn as the kings and queens of hives of kobolds. If eggs are not fertilized, you get kobolds. If they're fertilized, you get Dragonborn. Harry, I swear to you that I have notes, okay? And my notes specifically say, not exactly what you're saying, but I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to skip ahead because that is, we are so on the same page. My note said essentially, and I'm going to do you dirty. I'm going to do a triangle. I'm not going to give you one answer. That's too easy. We're going to critically think. Some say, others posit, many believe. I'm going to give you 3 things that very likely could be the case with the kobolds and Dragongrin, based on the lore that we've established so far. So the first one is, kobolds are essentially little dragon creatures. So there are a few ways we can handle this. One, some say that the kobolds are a result of the Dragonborn laying eggs, right? So now I love your idea. So that's going to be the second thing, which is others say the kobolds are underdeveloped dragon eggs and the soul has weakened over the millennia. So essentially what you're saying, they're unfertilized, meaning I don't know how the process works. I assume it's magical and arcane, etc., how these dragons are born, or these dragonborn are birthed of eggs out of this dragon. But my concept is their souls are weak, so the kobolds are now coming out. When the dragon gets weaker and weaker, it can't produce dragonborn anymore. And the best it can do to save itself are these little, these kobolds. And another more powerful dragon who's got enough soul energy to revivify is putting out dragonborn. And then maybe eventually, and this is an Aeronoth lore thing, how Matt Click has his dragon people in Aeronoth. He has like dragonborn, works with kobold, work with drakes. Kind of saying from that, it's like even more powerful dragons are able to put out drakes. So essentially, as long as you don't video gamify it too much, what you're doing is you're making it so that the dragon in your world can put out these different units to do its bidding. All the way from kobold, from the very weak ones, to dragonborn, to drakes, or both, or all 3. So Harry, super on the level, man, and that's awesome. Love that. Dylan says, my idea for Dragonborn is that the Dragonborns are actually a result of mating between a dragon and actual mortal men. They polymorph themselves to do this. The reason that dragons take a very long time to reproduce. This way they can raise an army through the Dragonborns to fight over territories. And I've heard that before. That's not my personal flavor I want to go with for Dragongrin. And I've heard a lot of good excuses, well, not excuses, good reasons why that can work. It also explains in a really good way, in a believable way, why Dragonborn are much more rare. So I could totally get down with what you're saying, and it's a good idea. I think in this case, it's one of those things where we got to look at the mission statement of the world and the tone we're trying to develop. And so I think it's a super cool idea, and I'm glad you said it, and especially people watching the stream or the video on YouTube, you know, they have that as an idea. For me, because the dragons are dead, I can't really think of a way that that would make sense, because the dragons, in our world at least, are believed all to be dead. But super good idea. Ben says, like that, Harry. I love it. It's super good. Ben Fisher says, like that too, Dylan. Tons of great ideas in here. Marquise is here. Marquise Hardis says, what's going on here? We're just world building Dragonborn. Jason Smith is here. Nathaniel ML Tice says, dragons fighting titans, titans win, and the dragon graveyards appear. That's more or less what happens. I don't want to get too far into that, but essentially, yeah, that's the exact thing, is that, and it's a Pyrrhic victory. Maybe both sides die for one reason or another. Jason Smith says, hey, Tim. James Lang says, what if arcane energy powered something? Not sure what, but something big. I love it. And we're going to get a little more into what that means, because our arcane energy in Dragongrin comes from that thing called the Bleak. It's essentially this arcane storm that is physical and tangible in a lot of areas. We're going to talk about how the essences, the souls, the mojo of dead dragons would affect something so noxious and already tumultuous as the Bleak. Let's see here. Rob Coletta says, I never get bored of playing folk recoiling in fear. Of playing folk recoiling in fear from taxes and lore keepers. It shouldn't be easy in society for big walk-in lizards. Your Robert E. Howard is a spot-on Anthony Hopkins. Josh Glisson says, what about a human bit by a dragon turning into a dragonborn, but permanently, not lycanthropy? See, that's a cool way too. It would also, I think the reason why that can be cool is because all of a sudden, dragons aren't just flying around killing people. They're assimilating people in a vampiric sort of way. So that's definitely a different flavor, and it would give a lot of reason to have dragons lure creatures into their nest. And then, listen, in the same way that we got a little crazy in the mid-90s with creatures being infested with xenophobes from the Aliens movies, it's like we had the bull alien and the gorilla alien. Then you can get crazy. What happens when a dragon bites an orc? You know, and so on, if you want to play that route, and that can be super cool. Rob Coletta says, upright walking lizards, I should say. Yeah, dude, having an enormous lizard walking around should have so many repercussions, the least of which is fear from everyone surrounding it. One of the main things I think that's ignored, and this isn't what the stream is about, but if you really want to add some grit, Dragonborn aren't allowed inside because they'll crush the floor, because they'll shatter the posts, you know, as they hit their head on it, things like that. Now, again, it depends on what flavor you're going. Some people just kind of hand wave it and the party goes where the party goes, and that's awesome. There's no problem with that. And it can be a lot more fun and fluid, you know, for a good old-fashioned game of D&D. But if you want to really get interesting, Dragonborn aren't allowed inside in a lot of places, unless it's made of stone, because, again, they can crush the building. They can destroy the building. So the Dragonborn has to stay outside, like a horse. And it puts kind of an emphasis on they're not supposed to be here. This isn't your society, that kind of thing. Josh Glisson says, got a problem with tax collectors, Rob? Taxes is the name of our Dragonborn in the Lore Keepers game. Ben Fisher says, you can also have Dragonborn outcasts that don't believe. Precisely, and there are your adventurers. But again, it would be very difficult. It wouldn't be an easy thing. So to have a Dragonborn outcast would be fewer and further between, and I think that's a good reason to have your adventuring party. Mike Lasham is here. Corey Hollenbach. Maybe they think they should inherit the world. Absolutely they think they should inherit the world. They're going to raise their dragon master and rule the way that it was intended. And all of them think that about their own respective masters. I think that's rock and roll. Marquis says, so will there be an option to include dragons in the Dead Man's Guide for my games? Will there be a canon lore to bring in dragons? What do you mean specifically? Is there canon to bring in dragons? Like how to raise them and how to make a dragon alive? Is that what you mean? Like you're basically saying, what is the state of dragons right now, and how would, if I was running a game in Dragon Grin with them all dead, how would I bring a dragon into the world? Is that what you mean? Because absolutely, if that's the case, yeah. And frankly, it's probably not going to be heavily mechanical. It's going to be a lot of flavorful ideas of, to me, giving the players a lot of ideas. Well, let me put it this way. There's nothing that says there aren't still dragons alive in the Bleak. Right? So that's thing one. So that'll be an option. Thing two is, you're talking about real dragon cults really raising a dragon. That's always going to be happening somewhere up the mountain. Like, you can always be like, yeah, there's some wild wacko trying to raise a dragon from the dead. That's just what happens in Dragon Grin. Always. And there's always going to be people trying to go into Uldane to try to rob those graves, man. If they're really dragon layers, then there's going to be hordes and treasure, right? Probably not. You're probably going to find a bunch of hags and witches and dragonborn tribes, like just these tribal, like barbaric dragonborn who are all at war. And to me, that's the other cool thing, just throwing this in here. In our world, in Uldane, you have the dwarves of Uldane. And to me, I think the blood feud is Uldane dwarves versus dragonborn. It's the eternal feud in Uldane. It's like dwarves and dragonborn are constantly fighting each other. They're constantly trying to kill each other. And so, I don't know. I just think that that's a cool pairing. Dragonborn versus dwarves. I don't know. Rory McDonough says, I have them as young dragons. They form a stone cocoon after a few hundred years as young dragons. Oh, I didn't finish. It's funny you say that. So, here's the other thing about kobolds. Talking to Harry, I don't know if you're still here, but many believe that kobolds and dragonborn are the same thing. One's just less mature. So after about 50 years, a kobold matures into a dragonborn. Some people in the world believe that as well. Now, who's going to prove it? Well, you got to pay attention. Be around a kobold or be around a dragonborn. You know, so there are a lot of ways to play that and kind of do that differently. Let's see here. Kristen says, I personally love the concept of making a race people are familiar with, terrifying and strange. I've been expanding on my world recently, and basically any race that's magical in a certain region is seen as terrifying and a harbinger of curses. That's great. That's brilliant. And I think applying that to the Dragonborn, where it's like they are an ill omen. It's like if a Dragonborn... Okay, here's just a myth to throw in there. If you see a Dragonborn's reflection in Dragon Grin, you will die in 24 hours. Not the Dragonborn. It's reflection. Ben Buckner is here. And Rob is talking about taxes. Ben Fisher. How dragons themselves are born is the question of the day on Discord. Totally did not plan that to coincide with this. No, totally didn't plan it at all. Nathaniel Tice says, dragons lost the war because they could not adapt themselves to the two-legged masses growing in the world. Dragonborn are the attempt of the dragons to reinvent themselves in the two-legged masses. Ooh, that's interesting. Dragonborn are collecting essences of any dragons in an effort to bring dragons back to life. That's pretty cool. It's a more societal thing. Like, I like the idea of the aging way of the dragon. It's almost like it's passé to live in your lair and collect treasures. It's like, you know, no, you're a grognard, and if you don't adapt, you're going to die. I love that idea. Nathaniel says, Dragonborn are distrusted by non-Dragonborn. Dragonborn hate Dragonborn. Yeah, it's a rough life. Let's see here. Ben Fisher says, you've shown a bleak dragon before. How about a bleak Dragonborn? Very possibly. Ben Buckner, hey Tim, Dragonborn in my world were created by demons using dragon blood to create a non-demonic army to cover the weakness of a full demon army. Ooh, that's good. Really loving that. Now, here's the other thing. Okay, we're talking about this Robert E. Howard, Edgar Rice Burroughs landscape here, where these Dragonborn are in these different temples. Again, think ancient temples, ancient dragon lairs, which this is a whole nother story, but that would mean maybe we throw a Mesoamerican society that lived in Uldane before, you know? just so that all the structure and architecture is there. That would be kind of cool. But serpentfolk. Let's talk about serpentfolk. To me, there are people living in Uldane. Not a ton, but enough. And to me, these would be in that area we were talking about. I think we called it the Maw of Sema, where it's just this place where the bleak doesn't touch, this huge ring. Now, the storms rage around it, but just think there are societies here, living here in this small area, trying to get what food they can and so on, and we'll figure all that later. Rule of cool. But here's what's cool. Serpentfolk are these people who have lived just stewing, marinating in the souls of dragons for centuries. So, now I'm not talking about the Dragonborn, but I'm talking about these mass Dragongrave energies make people start taking on more serpentine qualities. Think half-orcs, okay? Not lizard men, not half-dragons. It's not what we're talking about here. Think mostly human, but with draconic hints. Okay, now this has been going on, like I said, for like hundreds and hundreds of years. So now there are all manner of serpentfolk of various colors and types, and they can look as human as any half-elf could, or as putrid as the ugliest half-orc. But serpentfolk are much more common than actual full-blooded Dragonborn. And Dragonborn do not like serpentfolk. They're a byproduct. They're an afterthought. They are a waste product of their master. They are an accidentally blessed race. And so this kind of goes back to something that was said earlier. How do these arcane energies affect people? To me, that's how. And then, of course, there are going to be the dragon cult who purposefully try to become more serpentine. So they're constantly having rituals and doing whatever they can. They don't really know how it works, I would say, but they think they do. So maybe they're half right in their rituals, but the other half is just kind of placebo, but they don't know which half's working. So they're constantly trying to sacrifice people and, hop on their left foot and pray to blah, blah, blah and do this. But they get these different serpentine qualities and, maybe scaling, and they get mutated and all that stuff. So to me, there would be serpentfolk in Dragongrid. And so again, think of a serpentfolk as more of a serpentine half-orc as far as your mechanics and stuff like that. So I think this is a good solution to people who want to play full-on Dragonborn, but you want to just say, okay, you'd probably be more likely to be a serpentfolk. You'd probably be this human that has maybe a forked tongue, or maybe your ears are a little less developed and they're like smaller and like holes in your head, or maybe in extreme cases you do have thick scaly skin, stuff like that. I don't know. Kristen says, and as far as actual Dragonborn, could they possibly mutate when exposed by the bleak? It actually forces a dragon transformation. Perhaps the dragons know this and want to produce as many as possible to herald their return. Totally. And that's just cool stuff like that, like layering it on. That's also, man, you can grow some super bosses out of that. Like boss fights, like talking about the bleak mutating dragons. Come on. That's campaign ender stuff right there. Josh Clifton says, Harry and the Hendersons, Dragonborn edition. Josh Clifton says, oh, sorry, Rob. I knew that was his name, but I only think I hear that when I hear the word taxes. All right, so Kyle Swanson says, so what is the relationship, if any, between the dragons and the dismembered lord? Could there be fanatics that want to usurp the dismembered lord by bringing back the dragons? So to me, the relationship is this. I believe that the dismembered lord would look upon them and understand their power. I believe he would be wise enough to play to the fanatics and allow them to do their thing and allow them to believe that he believes. But I also think that he probably wouldn't truly believe, and he certainly wouldn't want a bunch of dragon flying around, because he knew, I believe the dismembered lord would be shrewd enough to know that he couldn't control the dragons. I don't think he's the big bad guy who's like, I will raise an army of dragons, because to me, realistically, unless you have a way to control them, which could fail, those dragons will rise up and then they will do whatever they want. And you don't want a bunch of wild cards flying around trying to take what you have fought so hard for. So to me, I think that his relationship with them would be to empower cults, to allow them to go and research and, yes, I believe. But really what he's doing is keeping tabs on these dragons. And if and when someone gets too close, they're taken out. That's how I think it would probably go down. Marquis says, so what is the Dismembered Lord's opinion on Dragonborn, dragons, and the resurrection? So I kind of answered that a little bit, but the idea here is I believe that he would be respectful of the Dragonborn and perhaps even pander to them or cater to them, you know, at the outset, making it appear as though he is allowing them, oh, yes, your holy war, you know. But again, there you go. That's like real geopolitical conflict as well, because now you have to be the United Nations for a bunch of warring Dragonborn clans. And when all of them are banging down your door with an emissary, you know, saying, well, you need to support us and you need to support us. Now, here's the thing, too, though. Again, that's why I want to keep them more cordoned off and barbaric. I don't mean barbaric in the sense that they're primal and bloodthirsty. I mean barbaric in the fact that the way that their societies are laid out, they're not making Dragonborn cities, essentially. They're living the way that they live, doing their thing in their temples and such. Marquis says, also, sounds like the Dragonborn are the Yuan-Ti of Dragongrin. They could be. Yeah, they could be. I think that is kind of a cool thing to kind of look into. Maybe that would be the case. To me, Yuan-Ti are, and maybe I'm thinking of the wrong image in the monster manual, but to me, the Yuan-Ti are pretty full-on serpent. Whereas to me, I imagine serpentfolk as being a lot less pronounced. Almost like, think lizard tiefling or lizard half-elf. But you're spot on, and maybe that's where the Yuan-Ti are from. Maybe that's the whole thing. Maybe serpentfolk don't need to really be a full thing. Maybe the Yuan-Ti are from there. That's cool. I always imagine the Yuan-Ti being from the jungle. So maybe, I don't know. Well, that's cool, though. Josh Glidden says, it would be interesting if the Dismembered Lord was a bit skittish of Dragonborn. Yeah, maybe like an actual fear. That would be cool. Nathaniel says, a dragon's essence will never be complete as it has faded over centuries. Thus, any essence collected will affect the resulting Dragonborn or reborn dragons. More like a Dracolich instead of reborn dragons. That's cool. That's very cool. Dylan Allen. I feel like these world building talks are getting better and better. Thanks, man. I'm actually using them to flesh out our world. We're writing a book. Wim Tamenga's here. Corey Hollenbach says, thanks for this. Awesome as always. Thanks, man. Kyle Swan says, I like that Dragonborn hate the serpentfolk as a sort of jealousy and religious fervor. Yeah, exactly. Dylan says, oh, maybe the Dragonborn can be like the Highlander. There can be only one collecting power from other Dragonborn. Oh, yeah, dude. That would... Can you imagine an epic Dragonborn battle? Just a duel? That's incredible. They collect enough, they'll become dragon. Oh, like, if I kill enough Dragonborn, I can become a dragon. I think that should be a belief, because, to me, you got this cult among the Dragonborn, this Church of the Dragon who's going around trying to kill each other. Like, yeah, I want your blood. I'm going to drink it and become a dragon. BJ Hall says, hey, Tim, he could. Get them all in one spot, tried to kill them all, and the roving bands are reminiscences of, Red Dragon Wedding. There's someone named No Kobolds in this conversation. I think that is interesting. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have on Dragonborn, Serpentfolk, and Kobolds in Dragongrin. But again, keep the conversation going. How do you handle Dragonborn? How do you handle, Kobolds? And do you have, or would you allow, a Serpentfolk? That sort of half-breed where it's mostly humanoid, but just slits for a nose, or perhaps they have that second set of eyelids, or, more people who have been transformed by these, dragon energies. And how do you handle it? Are you a dragons are born from eggs? Dragonborn are born from eggs? Or are you a Dragonborn do a more mammalian birth? All these things matter. What matters most is that you make your world ripe with conflict, and you never decide one true thing for everything. Meaning it's always good to allow yourself to have multiple beliefs on the same thing in the world, because that's how real life is. So anyway, Nathaniel says, great day for a white dragon wedding. Here's the thing, okay? We're considering, I don't know for sure, but we're considering making daily damage full-on world building. And that's what the end of the video thing is I want to talk to everybody about, is we're considering making it so that in addition to some streams, I might do a stream here and there where it's like, hey, we're going to do something a little different and do more of the, you know, tips or tricks or things that are interesting us and so on. That probably wouldn't stop. But I'm considering, and I want to know everybody's thoughts on this, because it seems like the world building streams are getting the most response. People seem to like these the most. So comment on this video, like it if you want us to continue. Please let us know if you want these to be the norm. Do you want Daily Damage to be mostly world building streams? And you know, if ever it doesn't seem like I'm inspired or that's kind of pigeonholing us, we won't do that. Maybe even I can do like, hey, a couple days a week kind of thing. The one thing I don't want to do is pigeonhole myself into, I don't know. I don't want to pigeonhole myself and like, hey guys, it's World Building Wednesday. I just like to be able to talk about whatever I'm thinking, but I feel like I can world build all day on anything. Like if we talk about it, it's just like, that's something that immediately can come in with little or no prep. So I'm just interested in that. So if you are interested in that, let us know. If you want it to be more of a mixed bag, where it's like, hey, do a little world building, do a little tips and tricks, you know, do a little, I don't know, whatever you want to see here. To me, though, it seems like we're getting the biggest response out of these world building streams. So just let us know. And as always, you are what makes Tabletop Terrors great. Be sure to like this Facebook page so you get the notifications when we go live. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, you got to crush that subscribe button if you want to be uncommonly good at world building and hyper creative. That's what we're about here at Tabletop Terrors. Anyway, we love you, and until next time, may your dice roll high.